from the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
What is happening? You get two Jameses on a practitioner brief. It's bound to be epic.
Definitely.
James McQuiggan, good morning, good sir.
Good morning, Mr. Azar. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. So here we're James and James. On Clubhouse, we're McQuiggan and Azar, just so you guys know, right? And literally no more than 2 hours ago, you and I were McQuiggan and Azar on the other side of Cyber on Clubhouse.
Yes,
good morning to everyone tuning in. James McQuiggan, security evangelist, security awareness evangelist over at our friends at KnowBe4, who I'm excited to have joining me this morning. This is your practitioner brief for August 19th, 2021. We're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If you have not subscribed, please make sure to do so right now if you don't mind, and follow us on your favorite podcast network. I'll be remiss if I didn't bring up my webinar with Roger Grimes on Tuesday. It's in the show notes. You guys can go click and register now. Hacking MFA, how to properly deploy, defend, and really utilize MFA for what it's meant to be, a second factor authentication that's secure. You work with Roger every single day. He's just a mind of brilliance.
He's a wealth of knowledge. He's got tons of experience, and he loves to write and he loves to talk. So he doesn't shy away from any questions. So make sure check it out next week and ask Roger any question. Any MFA, data-driven defense, quantum. You know, he's got all. He's just well-versed and a good friend and great colleague.
And a no PowerPoint webinar, folks. There's not going to be a PowerPoint. All right. So be there. Ask your questions. You know, mark an hour on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Good morning to David. Good morning to Matt. Good morning to Brent. Rob. I don't know who this is, but it's morning, everyone. Joel, Corey, Aaron, thank you. Yes, and great info on Clubhouse today. If you're not following the other side of cyber or digital debate or CISO talk on Clubhouse, go do so now. Okay, so we've got a lot of news to talk about, from GitHub to the census to liquid crypto to Iran and a new threat vector of how they were targeting Israelis. And how would I not wrap up this week without another story on China? And soon enough, I'll have like a little 2-second little thing whenever I want to bring up China. It'll be like a little intro, like a little video. It'll be like, dun, 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 dun. All right, coffee cup cheers, though, folks. Let's kick it off. By the way, the slogan of Coffee Cup Cheers started with Mr. McQuiggan. So it's very ironic that you're with me on the show today, Mr. McQuiggan. My double espresso. What are you drinking this morning, sir?
I have my favorite Tim Hortons coffee that I get shipped from Amazon, Canadian coffee, the equivalent of Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, but a lot better. Have it every day. So I have my Timmy's. Oh, well, yeah. I'm guessing that's a thumbs down for Starbucks and Dunkin'.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Good morning to Jason as well. Coffee cup cheers, everyone.
Coffee cup cheers. Whoop. There we go. One of these days we'll do it in person, and that'll be fun.
Wouldn't that be amazing? I miss in-person stuff.
Almost getting there. Almost there.
Almost there. All right, folks, let's start off with our first story this morning. GitHub has woken up to the idea of two-factor authentication. I'll mention my webinar again on Tuesday with Roger Grimes about multi-factor authentication. The Microsoft-owned hosting service has had support for MFA for 8 years, but is now pushing for wider use. Here's the thing. Too late, or are we going to see something really kind of, or do you think this is kind of a reaction to maybe some announcement we might see coming up from GitHub in the next little bit of time?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I think it could be a combination of both. Personally, when I read it, I'm like, why isn't this already mandatory? I mean, with the amount of information. Right. But I think I found a similar article relating to this where, with regards to MFA, we look at your favorite platform, James, Twitter. They're only seeing like 2.5% of the users actually adopt using MFA. A lot of that comes either from the back end aspect of configuring it, or people just aren't wanting to do it. It's bad enough they got to remember a password, right? And they got to log in. They just try to stay logged in as much as possible. But I think with what GitHub offers and the service and it's what it houses, I think MFA, it should be standard and it's an opt-out kind of concept. But
it should be required, because if we've learned nothing is that we know that sophisticated attacks go through GitHub. They try to target those repositories. And so a little too late for GitHub to start kind of putting this out there. They should have made it a requirement and moved on.
I mean, they can be using the authenticator apps rather than SMS. I mean, that's not that hard. Well, I know it's not easy to set up, but, hopefully they'll get away from the SMS text-based.
So I thought they were removing TOTP, and text-based. Yes, they are. They're removing that and they're enabling two-factor. But eventually, they're not removing that. I'm so sorry. They're still going to have virtual keys into personal devices like time-based one-time passwords, authentication apps, or SMS. So they're still keeping that, and we'll talk about that on Tuesday. I hate to keep referencing it, but I'm not going to give you all the answers. Go sign up. Be with me and Roger on Tuesday. I promise you it'll be the best hour you'll spend all of next week. All right, we'll move to our next story. So I've written this one out in my head. You guys remember the world pre-pandemic? When last year started, 2020, Citrix was an actual hashtag in security circles. Before WFH, before, resiliency, before, all of that, it was Citrix. Well, apparently a year and 8 months later, because Citrix was right before RSA, McQuiggan, the last time you and I actually saw each other in person, they actually didn't breach. They didn't actually deal with the 0-day, and the U.S. Census Bureau servers were breached on January 11th by criminals who exploited the Citrix ADC 0-day vulnerability at the Office of Inspector, as the U.S. Office of Inspector General disclosed in a recent report. The purpose of these servers was to provide the Bureau with remote access capability for its enterprise staff to access the production, development, and lab networks, according to system personnel. These servers did not provide access to the 2020 decennial census networks. During the attack, the Bureau's firewall blocked the attacker's attempt to communicate from the remote access servers to its command and control infrastructure as early as 2 days later. However, the attack was only partially successful. Mr. McQuiggan, your take on this one, sir?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it took 2 weeks for them to realize is no surprise. They had planned the proverbial, we planned on doing it, but then COVID happened. But it's certainly apparent that they're resource lacking with regards to their Citrix experts within the government, because they were all around doing all the other stuff. I know there's plenty of cybersecurity professionals out there that are hungry and ready to get to work. They could have, found those resources. Again, we're dealing with something that's from 2019 that hadn't been patched yet. And with organizations, when you're connected directly to the internet, it's, you're not behind multiple firewalls or air gap systems or whatever else. These are exposed systems. We got to make sure these are getting patched in a proper and timely manner, not waiting months long after the vulnerability came out. So it's unfortunate, glad that the census data itself wasn't taken, but certainly need to work towards correcting it. And also how long it took to report it as well. This happened last year, and now we're just hearing about it. So, yep. It's a 0-day, not a vul. Okay, thanks, Matt.
Can you hear me? Okay, now you can hear me, right? Can everyone hear me okay? I've been talking to myself. I am very, very, very sorry. I do apologize. I had muted myself while Mr. McQuiggan was speaking. There is a first to everything on the show. That is all me. Mr. McQuiggan dropped. He'll be right back. He thought it was him, but I do apologize. That is a first. I love live shows because my screw-ups are my screw-ups. So I was on mute.
You were on mute. Here I was thinking.
Going off, and I'm giving this like 2-minute monologue, right, around liquid crypto, and boom, I was in it. You're right, Matt. I was in it. I'm so sorry, everyone. I
thought it was my audio. I thought, oh my gosh, something went wrong. And so
now I'm going to have to edit that entire segment for our audio listeners on the podcast so they don't think like the podcast went out.
Wow. How did you mute yourself, man?
I muted myself when you were speaking so that I can have a sip of coffee without people hearing my annoying sip. And lo and behold, I've shadow banned myself indeed. Yes, a little bit of entertainment this Thursday morning for you folks. So what I wanted to say was on the back end was Citrix is no longer a 0-day. It was a 0-day when this happened, but now it's a vulnerability. You're absolutely right, Matt. Liquid cryptocurrency exchange loses 94 million. So is this going to be a poly network kind of go around or not? We'll see. They've suspended all deposits and withdrawals. They say they have 800,000 customers in over 100 countries. You do 1.1 billion in daily trade volume. Of the money stolen, $94 million worth of stolen crypto. 31 million was in Ether, 13 million XRP, 4.8 million in Bitcoin, 7.7 in stablecoin, and 37.4 million in other tokens. Mr. McQuiggan, your thoughts?
Kind of goes back to, well, my initial reaction when I read this was, okay, is this another poly? What we saw at the beginning of the week? And are we going to turn around and get another, white hat cybersecurity expert come forward and go, yeah, no, it was just a pen test and then get hired. But twice in 1 week, we've had 2 different organizations hit and have funds stolen. It kind of puts me a little on edge when it comes to cryptocurrency. And you and I chatted about it beforehand. It's like, I'm still kind of not sure about it. Granted, there are hundreds of car accidents every day, but I still drive because that's a necessity. Where this is kind of like, all right, this might be kind of fun to invest in, but to see millions, 80 million, this is like the old great bank train robberies of the 1800s where they would be stealing everything, stealing money off the trains. So unfortunately, with Liquid, they got hit in 2018. They've already been hit once and had a whole bunch of customer information stolen. So either they got to bump up their security culture, their security capabilities, but hopefully they can get those taken care of. Don't forget to unmute. Oh, okay.
So yesterday on Digital Debate, we talked a little bit about the Poly network cryptocurrency hack, which all of a sudden landed Mr. Whitehat as the company's chief security advisor. I got to tell you, man, when we were talking about this last night on Digital Debate on Clubhouse, I was cracking up in my own thing because I'm like, how stupid do you think people really are? You come out, you announce a hack, you write an open letter. Then you say, well, this guy was just doing a bug bounty. And you're like,
huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say that in the first place? Yeah.
Yeah. Why not say we did a bug bounty program? Someone stole, the bug bounty was successful. They took $611 million. Here's how they did it. Here's how we're fixing it. Here, by the way, we're going to put all this information out to all other crypto exchanges because we want to better the industry. But instead, they've kind of tried to twist this in some sort of PR. Someone. I guarantee you, someone in their office is sitting there sipping his espresso, if he drinks espresso, pretentiously going, "Am I a genius or am I a genius?"
He's sitting there having his three martini lunches.
Indeed. So Matt says it's damage control. Absolutely. Aaron says hearing you sip would have been better than losing the information you were sharing while muted. Thank you for that, Aaron. Yeah, I did repeat everything I said. I just paraphrased it so you guys avoided the long reading monologue. So that helps. We'll move to our next story, folks. An Iranian APT called Hexane targets Israeli companies. Okay, so we know that these two countries have been in cyber warfare for the last 12 years minimum that we know of. I'm not really getting into the political side of this. What I really wanted to bring this story out is how they did it. And how they did it is what we all need to know as practitioners. So let's put politics aside on this one for a minute. Here's what they did. They identified their victims. They identified who they were looking for. They then went out and identified a human resource department employee within that company that they would impersonate. Meaning if, for example, James is my HR personnel or I'm HR and James is the target, they would essentially impersonate me by establishing a phishing website to impersonate the targeted organization. So James works for KnowBe4, I work for KnowBe5. And I want to get James to go from KnowBe4 to KnowBe5. So I target him as a legitimate HR employee from KnowBe5 that you can verify online, set up a LinkedIn profile, impersonate the HR department employee, then contact the potential victim, make him a job offer, lure into the phishing websites so that they will submit their CV, do everything there. And once they get it, they establish the Milan malware is deployed to establish connection, and then the DanBot RAT is downloaded. And this is according to my friends over at Clear Sky, who brought this report. A very, very sophisticated type of attack that requires patience. But if you work in that kind of organization, this method of this modus operandi is no different.
Right.
James, anything you'd like to add?
I was going to say, yeah, we see a lot of this. This is similar to what we might see with a business email compromise or CEO fraud, where the cyber criminals are creating those fake personas, those fake websites to trick the victim in sending the money back to them. They're already getting into the email systems. They're seeing the communications going on, and then they wait for the invoice, and then they've already got the fake domain website set up to look very similar. You know, they're getting millions in return for these type of attacks. So being patient and waiting it out, it's worth it in the end run for them, unfortunately, for the victim. But they're basically sitting, waiting, and they're putting a lot of effort because the payout is huge in return for them. It's not going to be, granted, with ransomware, it's, you know, we're seeing large payouts as well. But business email compromise, we're seeing some of the larger payouts because the emails are coming in. It looks like it's coming from a valid source, and the accountants or the people that are processing the payments are going through and sending out the money without verifying.
And by the way, I want to point out, this is a very uncomfortable awareness conversation to have in an organization.
Yeah.
Hey, if someone contacts you and offers you a job, they might want to be offering you a job just because they want to steal you from the company. That sounds arrogant. That sounds like you don't want people to move on. You're almost being a dictator in some form or fashion. This is going to require some very finesse kind of approach to it, which means, you know, even if you're looking to leave, you know, one of the things I've considered doing, and this is one of my general ideas from an internal perspective, is set up a hotline, right? An anonymous hotline someone can call into and say, could you verify so-and-so, or have them send an email to an anonymous mailbox from, you know, that would give them the information they need in order to see if that the person who's contacting them is trustworthy.
Right.
So
it's that whole trust but verify, you know, and granted they had a website and some profiles, but then go a little deeper and check, verify that, see if they're really with that company, see who else. See, with LinkedIn, you can see those other connections, see if there's anybody, you know, dig a little deeper to verify that they really are who they say they are.
Indeed. I'll end on our final story. China. So Apple, who's been in the news for all the wrong reasons now, continues to be there. Citizens Lab, the folks behind the NSO story, find that Apple's China censorship process is bleeding into Hong Kong and Taiwan, even though they don't have the legal obligation to perform political censorship in Taiwan, it's doing so anyways. So either this is seeping through, or Apple's being asked by China to do this, and they're actually doing it. This has nothing to do with your business, has everything to do with just general knowledge of organizations. There's a new national security law that took effect in Hong Kong last year. But imagine if you have employees in Taiwan or Hong Kong that you're communicating with within your organizations or vendors. This types of filtering is going on right there. And anything you communicate with them could be potentially put them in harm's way. So just keep that in mind as we go forward. And Mr. McQuiggan, I'd ask you if you have anything to add. I want to try and keep this as neutral as possible.
Yeah, when I first read the article, part of me looks at it, and you alluded that it's not a business thing, but here we have an organization as big as Apple trying to break into the Chinese market and bend to the whim of the government that's over there. But even still, with some of the filtering, some of the they're pulling it automatically, whether they're validating it or verifying it, it's difficult to tell. But it's kind of a very, it's almost like a Kobayashi Maru almost. It's a bit of a sticky situation with regards to supporting the requirements that are coming from the government of the nation versus them wanting to sell more of their product in that particular country. There's not an easy answer, I don't think.
Yeah, there isn't one. But if you're using WeChat or if you're using any app to communicate with people within Hong Kong or Taiwan, just be mindful of this, especially if they're on iOS devices.
Yep.
Just be really mindful of it.
Well, I would say Android, any of the devices as well. You're using the WeChat application, that's all going through their firewalls.
Indeed.
Yep.
That's it for our practitioner brief today. In about an hour and a half on YouTube, my CISO Talk episode with Arvind Raman, I'm sorry. He's the CISO over at Mitel. 8 months in his job, a great, really smart person. Him and I debate Zero Trust for literally 15 minutes. It's really, really good. Go check it out. It's already live on the CISO Talk podcast channel. You can give it a listen. I've shortened our CISO Talk podcast. We're trying to get in within 45 minutes so you guys can actually get it all packed in there. So we're not going an hour and a half or so forth. So go check that out. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., also Eastern, right here, Alan Alford and I will be live answering all your questions right here on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. So make sure you follow us. Tune in tomorrow. Alan and I have kind of agreed to do these impromptu lives every third Friday of the month. So tune in with us. Have a good time. We're going to be taking your questions, anything security, anything around career advice, you name it, we'll be talking about it. So make sure you tune in there. James McQuiggan, how can people follow you?
LinkedIn, your favorite platform. Twitter, I'm more active on LinkedIn though. Wednesday mornings, not next Wednesday, but the beginning of September, me and my good friend Bob Henderson, we have a Clubhouse room. It's the best room in Clubhouse, and that's what it's called. It's BEST, B-E-S-T, Bleeding Edge Security Talk. We chat with CISOs every week. We're taking next week off. Somebody's going on vacation, but we'll be back in a couple of weeks. So follow me on Clubhouse, LinkedIn, get all the info.
Indeed. And go sign up for the Hacking MFA webinar with Roger Grimes. Promise you, it's not like the stuff you're used to. It's going to be really awesome because when you ask a question, we're gonna take care of it, I promise. So go tune into that. Until next time, and see you again tomorrow when I'm here live. And then Practitioner Brief will be back again on Monday with all the latest. Until then, folks, have a great rest of your day and stay cyber safe. Cheers.
Take care, everybody.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.